The Austin sun hung low, painting the skyline in hues of burnt orange, like a BBQ pit smoldering after a long cook. Ethan Caldwell leaned back in his leather chair, the kind that creaked with the weight of 16 years' worth of deals, dreams, and dogged determination. His office at Peak Pulse Gear's Southwest Division headquarters overlooked the Colorado River, where kayakers glided like they hadn't a care in the world. Ethan envied them, not for their paddles or their overpriced sunglasses, but for the simplicity of their motion, forward, steady, unburdened by the corporate quicksand he'd been wading through since Apex Ventures bought out his company 6 months ago. 16 years ago, a Peak Pulse Gear was a single, sad storefront in a North Austin strip mall, wedged between a vape shop and a taqueria that always smelled faintly of regret. The Southwest Division was bleeding cash faster than a slot machine in Vegas, and Ethan, a 30-year-old Texan with a business degree and a chip on his shoulder, was hired to fix it or bury it. He chose to build, not with slick algorithms or Silicon Valley snake oil, but with handshakes that meant something, conversations over brisket that sealed million-dollar deals, and a stubborn belief that people still mattered more than pixels. His mantra was simple: real relationships beat flashy pitch decks. Think boots on the ground, not holograms in boardrooms. Under Ethan's watch, the Southwest Division became Peak Pulse's crown jewel, a $12,500,000 0-cents revenue juggernaut that grew 22% year over year, leaving competitors like Urban Trek and FitForge in the dust like a Longhorn stampede. He personally managed key accounts, memorizing not just contract terms but the quirks that made clients human. Big Tex Johnson from Lone Star Logistics liked his ribs fall off the bone and his contracts ironclad. Carla Ruiz from Hill Country Health had a daughter who played soccer and a vendetta against late deliveries. Ethan knew their kids' names, their go-to BBQ joints, even the way they took their coffee. It wasn't just business. It was trust, forged over years of showing up, fixing problems, and meaning what he said. His team had grown from a ragtag crew of 12 to a tight-knit 35, each member handpicked or mentored into excellence. Lila Chen, a data analyst with a sharp tongue and sharper dashboards, had been a junior hire until Ethan spotted her knack for turning numbers into stories clients couldn't ignore. He promoted her to lead analytics, and now her reports were the division's secret weapon. Tina Morales, his assistant, was a former Washington, D.C. native whose sarcasm could cut glass. She kept Ethan's schedule tighter than a rodeo lasso and his spirits high with one-liners that belonged on a comedy stage. Together, they'd turned a failing outlet into a machine that didn't just sell athleisure and hiking gear, it sold a lifestyle, one that screamed "Live Bold" from every neon-lit store window. But the winds had shifted. Apex Ventures, a San Francisco private equity firm with a reputation for gutting companies like a catfish, had acquired Peak Pulse in a $1.2 billion 0-cents deal. With Apex came Mason Vance, a Stanford MBA with a man bun, a Tesla Cybertruck, and a vocabulary straight out of a TED Talk. Mason had been CEO for 10 weeks, strutting into the Austin office like he'd invented the internet. His team of efficiency architects carried iPads and spoken buzzwords: synergy, disruption, customer acquisition algorithms. They didn't care that Ethan's division had landed Lone Star Logistics' $5 million 0-cents contract because he'd spent a weekend judging Big Tex's BBQ ribs at a county fair, earning loyalty no spreadsheet could quantify. Mason never asked, never cared. To him, Ethan's success was an anomaly, a glitch in his AI-driven vision of a frictionless future. Ethan's phone buzzed, snapping him out of his thoughts. A calendar alert. Urgent meeting with CEO Vance. 12 minutes from now via Zoom. Odd. Mason usually summoned him to the glass-walled C-Seek, where he'd monologue about scaling paradigms while sipping kombucha. Ethan glanced at the Austin skyline again, a knot forming in his gut. He'd seen this movie before. 4 CEOs had come and gone during his tenure, each praising his work until they didn't. But this felt different, like the quiet before a Texas thunderstorm. He logged into Zoom, adjusting his Stetson cap, a gift from Big Tex. Before the call connected, Mason's face filled the screen, his man bun immaculate, his smile as polished as his Cybertruck. Behind him, A neon "Innovate or Die" sign glowed, a Silicon Valley cliché that made Ethan's eyes roll. "King Mason, thanks for jumping on," Mason said. His voice clipped like he was reading from a script. "I'll keep this tight. Apex has greenlit a full restructuring to maximize shareholder value. AI-optimized workflows, leaner teams, the works. Your role, unfortunately, doesn't align with the new org chart. Effective immediately, your position is eliminated." Ethan blinked, the words hitting like a sucker punch. 16 years, $12,500,000, 0 cents in revenue, 22% growth, and he was being cut in a 12-minute Zoom call? He opened his mouth to respond, but Mason barreled on. "It's not personal. Data shows we can streamline account management with predictive analytics. We're pivoting to a system-dependent model. You've done great work, but this is about scalability. Security will escort you out. HR will email your severance details." The screen went black. Call ended. Ethan sat frozen, the hum of his office fan the only sound. His mind raced, replaying the call like a bad country song. Scalability? Predictive analytics? Mason hadn't even mentioned Lone Star Logistics, Hill Country Health, or the clients who'd stuck with Peak Pulse because Ethan fixed their problems before they knew they had them. He thought of his wife, Sarah, who'd supported every late night, every missed anniversary, believing he was building something lasting. His daughter, Ava, now 28 and painting murals in Portland, had grown up with a dad who was half ghost, always on a plane or a call. For what? A Zoom guillotine. A knock at the door jolted him. 2 security guards, burly guys in ill-fitting polo shirts, stood with Tina Morales hovering behind them. Tina, with her wild curls and a smirk that could disarm a rattlesnake, mouthed, "This is dumber than a vegan at a brisket cook-off." Ethan almost laughed, but the guards' stern faces killed the moment. "Mr. Caldwell, we need you to pack up and leave," the taller guard said, shifting uncomfortably. Ethan nodded, rising slowly. He wasn't the type to make a scene, not his style. He'd built this division with quiet grit, and he'd leave the same way. Tina slipped past the guards, shoving a cardboard box into his hands. "I grabbed this from the supply room. Figured you'd want to keep it classy, not use some trash bag like they did to poor Jerry in accounting." Her voice dripped with defiance, but her eyes were wet. Ethan gave her a nod, a silent thank you for 16 years of keeping him sane. He packed methodically, each item a shard of his life at Peak Pulse. Family photos, Sarah and Ava at Zilker Park, Ava's paint-splattered hands holding her first mural sketch, a top trailblazer plaque from Big Techs, awarded after Ethan helped Lone Star Logistics roll out 10,000 employee uniforms without a hitch. A handwritten note from Carla Ruiz at Hill Country Health, thanking him for fixing a 3 a.m. app outage that saved their online store from tanking. 16 years, distilled into a box that weighed less than his old Labrador. As he packed, Tina whispered, "Word's out already. Lila's about to blow up X with this. She's calling it when your boss thinks AI beats actual humans. #MasonManBun Massacre." Ethan chuckled despite himself. Lila Chen, his analytics prodigy, had a knack for turning corporate nonsense into viral memes. Her latest, a photoshopped Mason riding a Roomba labeled AI efficiency, was circling the office Slack like wildfire. The guards cleared their throats, impatient. Ethan zipped his jacket, slung the box under one arm, and walked out, Tina trailing like a loyal sidekick. The office was eerily quiet, staff avoiding his gaze as if termination was contagious. Maggie Harper, the HR manager with a steel spine and a soft spot for Ethan, hovered near the elevator, clutching a clipboard. She mouthed, "I'm sorry," but didn't step closer, and Ethan nodded, understanding. She was trapped in the same corporate cage. The elevator dinged, and Vince Russo, the Northeast Division's slick executive, sauntered past, his cologne announcing him before his smirk did. "Tough day, Caldwell," Vince said, his tone dripping with fake sympathy. "Guess the old-school playbook doesn't cut it anymore." Ethan ignored him, but Vince's words stung. Vince had been gunning for Ethan's job for years. His motivational posters, hustle hard, win big, plastering the Boston office like propaganda. Ethan suspected Vince had Mason's ear, whispering about legacy costs and digital transformation. If anyone was behind this, Vince's fingerprints were all over it. Outside, the Austin air was thick with the scent of food trucks, tacos, smoked brisket, and ambition. Ethan loaded his box into his F-150, the same truck he'd driven to every client within 200 miles when he started at Peak Pulse. He glanced at the glass tower, Peak Pulse's logo gleaming like a false prophet. In his rearview mirror, the skyline shrank, the city's heartbeat fading like a breakup song on a jukebox. He should have felt free, unburdened, after years of carrying 35 employees and millions in contracts. Instead, it felt like betrayal, sharp and personal, like a friend who'd borrowed your truck and returned it with an empty tank. His phone buzzed as he hit the I-35. Big Tex Johnson's name flashed on the screen. Ethan answered, bracing for the boom of Rusty's voice, a mix of Willie Nelson and a foghorn. "Even what in the Sam Hill is this I hear about you getting canned?" Big Tex roared. "That's crazier than a hipster in cowboy boots at the rodeo. Who's running that clown show now?" Ethan sighed, merging into traffic. "Mason Vance, new CEO. Thinks AI can do my job better." "AI? That's like trusting a robot to smoke a brisket. You okay, brother?" "Been better," Ethan admitted. "They didn't even give me a heads up. Just a Zoom call and a security escort." Big Tex let out a whistle. "That's colder than a January dip in Barton Springs." "Look, Lone Star's got $5 million 0 cents tied up with you folks. We signed because you showed up at my BBQ cook-off, judged my ribs, and fixed our delivery mess. Ain't no algorithm gonna do that. What's your next move?" "Not sure yet," Ethan said, his mind flickering to possibilities. "Rival companies, a startup, maybe a long overdue fishing trip. Gotta talk to Sarah, figure out what's what." "You do that, but I'm telling you, we're not sticking with Peak Pulse if you're gone. Call me tomorrow, all right? And don't let those suits get you down. You're tougher than a $2 steak." Ethan hung up, a faint smile breaking through. Big Tex's loyalty was a lifeline, a reminder that relationships were his currency, not Mason's predictive analytics. But the call also stirred unease. If Lone Star pulled their contract, Peak Pulse would hemorrhage millions. And if other clients followed, Ethan pushed the thought aside, but a darker one crept in. What if Mason's team was setting him up to take the fall? He'd heard whispers of Apex's ruthless playbook. Cut key players, blame them for the fallout, then sell the carcass for parts. Was Vince Russo orchestrating this, planting seeds in Mason's ear to clear his path to the C-suite? Back home, Ethan's ranch-style house in South Austin was quiet, the porch swing creaking in the evening breeze. Sarah, his wife of 20 years, was in the kitchen, chopping onions for chili, her auburn hair tied back with a bandana. She looked up as Ethan set his box on the counter, her eyes reading him like a book. "They did it, didn't they?" she said, not a question. Sarah had seen the signs, late-night emails, Mason's consultants sniffing around, Vince's smug visits from Boston. She'd urged Ethan to jump ship months ago, but he'd stayed, believing his numbers would protect him. 12 minutes on Zoom, Ethan said, sinking into a chair. "Mason says it's about AI-optimized workflows. Security walked me out like I stole the company jet." Sarah set down her knife, wiping her hands on her apron. "Those idiots. You built that division from nothing. $12,500,000 0 cents, Ethan. 22% growth. They think a computer can replace that?" "Apparently." He rubbed his temples, the weight of the day settling in. Big Tex called. Says Lone Star might pull their contract, Hill Country Health too. Carla told me they stayed because I fixed their app crash at 3 a.m. last year. Mason doesn't even know their names. Sarah slid a Shiner Bock across the table, her eyes fierce. "You're not done, Ethan Caldwell. You've got 16 years of connections, people who'd follow you to the moon. Mason's playing checkers, you're playing chess." He cracked the beer, the cold bite grounding him. Sarah was right. Mason's move was short-sighted, but Ethan's network was his checkmate. Still, doubt gnawed at him. What if Apex's plan wasn't just to cut costs, but to sabotage him? Vince Russo's smirk flashed in his mind, along with a rumor Tina had mentioned. Apex had a history of framing executives for mismanagement to dodge severance payouts. Was that Mason's endgame? Blame Ethan for client losses, paint him as the villain, then let Vince swoop in as the savior? His phone lit up with a text from Lila Chin. Check X, I'm trending. Mason Man Bun Massacre. Ethan opened the app and there it was, Lila's post. A meme of Mason's head on a Terminator body, captioned, "When your boss thinks AI greater than actual humans." It had 10,000 likes and counting, with comments from Peak Pulse staff spilling tea. Mason asked me how to spell logistics today. He thinks Southwest is a budget airline. Ethan snorted, but the humor faded as he scrolled. An anonymous post, tagged Peak Pulse Purge, hinted at more layoffs, naming Ethan as the first domino. The poster's handle at Northeast Hustler screamed Vince Russo. Was Vince leaking dirt to stir chaos, or worse, to bait Ethan into a legal trap? Another text popped up, this time from Carla Ruiz at Hill Country Health. Ethan, just got a robo-email from Peak Pulse about seamless transitions. No mention of you. What's going on? We need to talk. Ethan's stomach twisted. Mason's team wasn't even trying to salvage client relationships. They were sending automated emails like tossing a post-it note into a hurricane. Carla's message confirmed what big tech's implied. Clients weren't just upset, they were ready to bolt. And if they did, Apex could pin the revenue hit on Ethan, claiming he'd stabilized the division. He set the phone down, staring at the box on the counter. The top Trailblazer plaque glinted under the kitchen light, a reminder of what he'd built and what Mason was dismantling. Ethan thought back to his first days at Peak Pulse, driving to every prospect within 200 miles, listening to their gripes about late shipments, shoddy zippers, and apps that crashed like a drunk at a honky-tonk. He'd fixed it all, building a team that didn't just meet expectations but blew them out of the water. Alisa's dashboards turned data into deals, Tina's hustle kept clients smiling, Maggie's quiet support in HR smoothed over conflicts. Even Vince Russo, for all his sleaze, couldn't deny the Southwest Division's numbers. Or could he? What if Vince was feeding Mason doctored reports, inflating costs to justify Ethan's firing? Sarah sat across from him, her chili simmering on the stove. "What's next, cowboy?" she asked, her tone light but her eyes searching. Ethan took a long sip of his shiner. "I don't know yet, but I'm not letting Mason and Vince turn 16 years into a footnote. Big tech's Carla? They're not just clients, they're family, and family doesn't ditch you over a Zoom call." Sarah grinned, raising her own beer. "That's my man. Now eat some chili before it gets cold. You've got a war to win." As Ethan dug into the bowl, his phone buzzed again. An email from Maggie Harper, subject, confidential. He opened it, heart pounding. "Ethan, I shouldn't be sending this, but you deserve to know. Mason's team is auditing your division's contracts, looking for irregularities. Vince is pushing hard, says you inflated revenue to pad your bonus. It's a setup. Watch your back." Attached was a screenshot of an internal memo, with Vince's name circled in red. "Caldwell's relationship-dependent model is a liability. Recommend immediate termination and forensic audit to protect shareholder value." Ethan's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a firing. It was a frame job. Vince and Mason weren't just cutting him loose, they were building a case to ruin him, to smear his name and dodge his severance. If they pinned a multi-million-dollar loss on him, Apex could sue, leaving him bankrupt. And with clients like Big Tex and Carla ready to jump ship, the fallout would look like Ethan's fault, not Mason's incompetence. But then Lila's meme flashed in his mind, and he laughed, a deep, defiant belly laugh that made Sarah raise an eyebrow. "What's so funny?" "They think they've got me cornered," Ethan said, setting down his spoon. "But they forgot one thing. I built this division from a strip mall to a stampede. And I've got Big Tex, Leela, Tina, and half of Austin in my corner. Mason's playing with a calculator, I'm playing with people." Sarah clinked her bottle against his. "To people over pixels." As the chili warmed his bones, Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. He could fight back, call Big Tex, rally clients, expose Vince's scheme, or he could walk away, start fresh, maybe open that food truck he joked about. But one thing was certain, Mason and Vince had lit a fuse, and Ethan Caldwell wasn't the type to let it burn out quietly. The Austin skyline might have faded in his rear view, but the fight was just beginning, and in Texas, you don't bet against a Longhorn with something to prove. The Austin night buzzed with possibility, like a neon sign flickering outside a 6th Street dive bar. Ethan Caldwell sat on his South Austin porch, the creak of his rocking chair syncing with the distant hum of food trucks on South Congress. His F-150 gleamed in the driveway, a loyal steed that had carried him through 16 years of building Peak Pulse Gear's Southwest Division into a $12,500,000 0-cents empire. Now, Bad Empire had spit him out in a 12-minute Zoom call, and the weight of Mason Vance's betrayal clung to him like the August humidity. His phone, resting on the porch rail, vibrated relentlessly, each ping a reminder that the world he'd built wasn't letting go without a fight. Clients were circling like vultures over a fresh kill. Riverfront Retail's CFO, Javier Torres, had left 3 voicemails, his tone escalating from concerned to "What the hell's going on?" Hill Country Health's Carla Ruiz texted, "No one's answering our emails. Are you still with Peak Pulse?" Even Bright Path Education, a smaller account, sent a cryptic message, "Heard about the shakeup, call us." Ethan's division had been the glue holding these relationships together, and Mason's AI-driven restructuring was peeling it apart faster than a cheap bumper sticker. Ethan's mantra, relationships over algorithms, had kept clients loyal through late shipments and app crashes. Now, with Mason ghosting them, those bonds were Ethan's lifeline, but also a ticking bomb. If clients bolted, Apex Ventures could pin the losses on him, painting him as the saboteur. Ethan sipped a Shiner Bock, staring at the Austin skyline, its glass towers glinting like a poker player's bluff. His mind churned with options, each a fork in a dusty Texas road. Join a rival like Trailblazer Threads, who'd courted him for years with promises of equity and autonomy? Start a food truck, slinging brisket tacos and freedom from corporate nonsense? Or consult for startups, leveraging his connections to mentor Austin's next big thing? Each path had its allure, but none erased the sting of Mason's smug Zoom dismissal, or the nagging fear that Vince Russo was plotting something darker. Maggie Harper's email, the one warning of Vince's forensic audit to frame Ethan for inflated revenue, sat like a rattlesnake in his inbox, coiled and ready to strike. His phone buzzed again, this time a call from Big Tex Johnson, the larger-than-life CEO of Lone Star Logistics. Ethan answered, bracing for Rusty's booming drawl. "Baby." "Ethan, you sitting down?" Big Tex said, his voice a mix of barbecue smoke and righteous fury. "Just got a call from Mason Vance. Sounding like a pig at a luau. Boy's sweating bullets. Says you're poaching our contract. Threatened to sue you over some damn TikTok rant. You stirring the pot, or is he just losing his marbles?" And Ethan's grip tightened on the bottle. "Poaching? I haven't called a soul, Rusty. Clients are reaching out because Mason's team is sending robo-emails instead of answers. And TikTok? That's Lila's handiwork, not mine." Big Tex chuckled, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. "That gal's sharper than a cactus spine. Saw her post Mason's head on a Roomba going viral. But listen, Mason's desperate. Said he'd offer you a transition consultant gig to smooth things over. Smells like a trap to me, like putting ketchup on brisket." Ethan's jaw clenched. A consultant gig? Mason hadn't mentioned that in the Zoom call, only the cold boot out the door. This was a pivot, a sign clients were balking. Lone Star, Riverfront, Hill Country, and Mason was scrambling to save face. But Big Tex was right. It reeked of desperation, a shiny lure to keep Ethan close while Apex built their case against him. "I'm not biting, Rusty," Mason fumbled respect like a wet football. "No amount of money fixes that." "Sad boy," Big Tex said. "Look, Lone Star's $5 million 0-cents contract is up in 8 weeks. We're not renewing with Peak Pulse unless you're in the picture. You got plans yet?" "Not set in stone," Ethan admitted, his porch swing creaking as he leaned forward. "But I'm not done. Got a few irons in the fire." "Well, keep me posted and watch your back." Mason's got that weasel Vince Russo whispering in his ear. pair of 'em are slipperier than a greased pig." Ethan hung up, the night air thick with cedar and suspicion. Mason's accusation, poaching clients via TikTok, was laughable, but the lawsuit threat wasn't. Apex had deep pockets and a history of burying executives in legal fees. If Vince was pushing a narrative that Ethan was sabotaging Peak Pulse, they could freeze his severance, tank his reputation, even sue for damages. The audit Maggie mentioned was the real danger. A forensic to dive into his division's books, cherry-picking data to paint him as a fraud. Ethan's numbers were clean, 22% growth didn't lie, but Apex could spin anything with enough lawyers and lies. His phone pinged again, this time a text from Tina Morales. "Emergency intel, meet me at Joe's Coffee, 8 p.m. Got something you need to see." Ethan's pulse quickened. Tina, his wisecracking assistant, had a knack for sniffing out corporate dirt, and her cryptic tone meant trouble. He grabbed his keys, kissed Sarah goodnight, and headed out. The Austin streets alive with music and mischief. Joe's Coffee on South Congress was a hipster haven, its patio packed with tattooed baristas, tech bros, and tourists chasing Instagram vibes. Tina sat at a corner table, her curls wild under a neon sign reading, "Keep Austin Weird." In her hand was a USB drive, her expression a mix of glee and grim determination. "Boss, you're gonna love this and hate it," Tina said, sliding the drive across the table. "I smuggled Mason's restructuring deck from the server before they locked me out. It's a horror show. Think The Wolf of Wall Street meets Dumb and Dumber." Ethan plugged the drive into his phone, opening the file. The deck was a 60-slide monstrosity titled Peak Pulse 2, AI-Driven Domination. Slide 12 hit like a gut punch. Ethan's role was slated for elimination to fund AI-driven pop-up stores, a half-baked scheme to replace brick-and-mortar with algorithm-run kiosks. Slide 18 was worse, a 20% price hike on all client contracts justified by market optimization. Slide 25 listed team reductions, with Lila Chen, Tina Morales, and 3 others. Veterans who'd built the division, marked for layoffs, replaced by Gen Z temps at half the cost. The final slide projected 30% higher margins, assuming clients swallowed the price gouging and shoddy service. It was a house of cards, built on arrogance and ignorance. "They're gutting everything," Ethan said, his voice low. "Lila, you, the others, gone. And they think clients won't notice?" Tina smirked, sipping her iced latte. "Oh, they're noticing. Riverfront Retail's CFO is spamming my inbox, says Mason's team hasn't returned a call in 48 hours. Hill Country Health got a form letter about seamless transitions, like they're ordering pizza. Carla's ready to burn the place down." Ethan's mind raced. Mason's deck wasn't just a plan, it was a confession. They'd fired him not for performance, but because his relationship-driven model didn't fit their spreadsheet fantasy. Worse, they were targeting his team, banking on cheap labor to prop up their margins. But the clients weren't playing ball, and Mason's panic was proof. The consultant offer, the poaching accusations, it was all a desperate bid to stop the bleeding Ethan's exit had caused. "There's more," Tina said, leaning in. Lila's got the office buzzing on X. She leaked a clip of Mason ranting about legacy dinosaurs. "That's you, by the way. It's got 50,000 views, and Vince Russo's piling on, posting shady stuff about financial irregularities in your division. Smells like they're building a case to screw you over." Ethan's blood boiled, but he kept his cool. A Texas trait honed by years of navigating corporate rodeos. Vince's ex-posts were a smear campaign, laying the groundwork for Apex's audit. If they could prove Ethan had cooked the books, they'd dodge his severance, maybe even sue for restitution. It was a classic Apex move: cut, blame, litigate. But they'd underestimated him, and they'd definitely underestimated Tina and Leela. He drove home, the USB drive burning a hole in his pocket. Sarah was waiting, her chili replaced by a glass of wine and a knowing look. "Tina deliver the goods?" she asked. "More like a smoking gun," Ethan said, showing her the deck. "Mason's torching the division, and Vince is trying to frame me for the ashes. But clients are jumping ship, and Mason's begging me to consult, thinks he can buy me off." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "He's scared. You've got the power here, Ethan. Those clients trust you, not his man bun or his robots. What's your play? Ethan didn't answer right away. He stepped onto the porch, the Austin stars bright above. The food truck idea was tempting. Freedom, simplicity, no more suits. But the rival offer from Trailblazer Threads, a scrappy competitor with a downtown HQ and a rooftop office, was gaining traction. Their CEO, Dana Ortiz, had emailed him that morning. EVP, 5% equity, full control of client relationships. Bring your team. It was a chance to rebuild, to stick it to Mason and Vince without firing a shot. The consulting gig? A non-starter. Mason's desperation was a red flag, a trap, to keep Ethan tethered while Apex sharpened their knives. The next morning, Ethan met Big Tex at a food truck lot off Barton Springs, the air thick with the scent of smoked brisket and hope. Big Tex, in his 10-gallon hat and boots that could crush a small car, handed Ethan a foil container of ribs, still warm from the smoker. "Judge these myself last night," Big Tex said, grinning. 10 out of 10 if I do say so. Now spill it. What's the plan? Heard you're talking to Trailblazer Threads. Ethan took a bite, the smoky tang grounding him. They offered EVP, equity, and a clean slate. I'd bring my core team, Lila, Tina, 3 others. Dana Ortiz runs a tight ship, no AI nonsense. You thinking of following if I jump? Big Tex leaned back, his chair groaning under his weight. Son, if you're a Trailblazer, we're in. Lone Star's $5 million, 0 cents, ain't stayin' with Peak Pulse. Mason called me yesterday, talking about synergistic workflows. Sounded like a robot wrote his script. We trust you, Ethan, always have. Ethan's chest tightened, gratitude mixing with resolve. Appreciate that, Rusty. I'm meeting Dana today. If it's real, I'm in. As they ate, Ethan's phone buzzed with a voicemail from Mason. The CEO's voice was tight, like a man who just realized his parachute was a bedsheet. Ethan, we need to talk. Clients are raising hell. Riverfront, hill country, the works. I'm offering a transition consultant role, 6 figures, flexible terms. Name your price, man. Call me. Ethan deleted the message, his lips curling into a wry smile. How about a time machine? He muttered, echoing the quip he'd later used to Mason's face. The offer was a Hail Mary, but it confirmed what Big Tex and Tina had said. Mason was drowning, and Ethan's exit was the riptide. At afternoon, Ethan met his lawyer, Pete Navarro, at a dive bar on Rainey Street, where craft beers and conspiracy theories flowed in equal measure. Pete, a wiry Texan with a bolo tie and a law degree sharper than a switchblade, reviewed Ethan's Peak Pulse contract over a plate of nachos. Mason's poaching claim is weaker than decaf, Pete said, chuckling. Your non-solicitation clause is a joke, barely enforceable, and you haven't solicited a damn thing. Clients are calling you, not the other way around. As for the non-compete, it lists 5 competitors, but Trailblazer Threads ain't one of them. Vince Russo's Northeast team is on the restricted list, though bet that burns his hide. Ethan grinned, the first real smile in days. So, I'm clear to join Trailblazer. Clear as a hill country spring, Pete said. But watch out for that audit. Vince's ex-posts are laying groundwork to paint you as Enron too. If Apex pushes it, we'll slap him with a wrongful termination suit. Your firing was abrupt, no transition plan. Courts hate that. Armed with Pete's blessing, Ethan met Dana Ortiz at Trailblazer's downtown HQ, a sleek building with a rooftop deck overlooking Ladybird Lake. Dana, a no-nonsense CEO with a penchant for vintage cowboy boots, laid out the deal. Executive Vice President, 5% equity, full control of client relationships, and a budget to rebuild the Southwest Division. I want your team too, she said. Lila, Tina, whoever you trust. Mason's imploding. Let's capitalize. Ethan shook her hand, the deal sealed with a spark of defiance. I'm bringing 5 total. They'll quit Peak Pulse faster than you can say South by Southwest. True to his word, Ethan called Lila, Tina, and 3 others, Jake, a logistics guru, Priya, a marketing whiz, and Sam, a tech lead. He shared Mason's deck, exposing the layoffs targeting them. Trailblazers offering better pay, equity stakes, and no man buns, he said. All 5 said yes before he finished the pitch, their resignations hitting Peak Pulse's HR inbox by dawn. Tina's exit email was a masterpiece. Adios, Peak Pulse. I'm off to a place that values people over pixels. Mason Man Bun Massacre. The fallout was swift. Mason showed up at Ethan's ranch unannounced, his cyber truck looking absurdly out of place next to Ethan's F-150. The CEO's man bun was fraying, his eyes wild with panic. "Ethan, this has gone too far," he said, pacing the gravel drive. "Riverfront's threatening to pull F-150. Name your price, man, we need to talk." Ethan leaned against his porch rail, arms crossed. "Sounds like a you problem, Mason. You fumbled respect like a wet football. I'm not your cleanup crew." Mason's face reddened. "You're joining a competitor. That violates your non-compete." "Trailblazer's not on the restricted list," Ethan said coolly. "My lawyer checked. Maybe you should have read the fine print before Zoom firing me." Mason sputtered, his Silicon Valley polish cracking. "The board's furious. Clients are leaving. Your team's jumping ship. Whatever Trailblazer's offering, we'll beat it." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. "It's not about money, Mason. It's about 16 years of building something real. You and Vince thought you could erase that with a spreadsheet. Good luck with that." He turned and walked inside, leaving Mason shouting empty threats. The next day, Vince Russo escalated his sabotage, leaking an ex-post claiming Ethan had mismanaged $10 million 0 cents in contracts. Lila's clapback was instant, a viral meme of Vince as a snake oil salesman captioned, "When your hustle's all hat, no cattle." It racked up 100,000 likes, turning Vince into Austin's laughingstock. Weeks later, Trailblazer pulled off a coup, buying Peak Pulse's Southwest division for $2 million 0 cents, a steal for its $15 million 0 cents book. 4 or 5 major clients, Lone Star, Riverfront, Hill Country, and Brightpath, signed with Trailblazer, demanding Ethan's Texas touch. Big Tech sealed his deal over ribs, referring 2 new clients after Ethan rated his latest brisket a 10 out of 10. Trailblazer's Southwest division hit $18 million 0 cents in revenue, with 98% client retention, outshining its Peak Pulse. Mason quit when Peak Pulse missed projections by 25%, the Southwest bleeding 45% of its revenue. Apex's stock crashed 30%, and the board sold the company's scraps to Vortex Corp. In a last-ditch effort, they offered Ethan the CEO role, promising a private jet and unlimited autonomy. Ethan's reply was pure Texas, "I'd rather ride a horse." At Trailblazer, Ethan rehired laid-off Peak Pulse staff, including Maggie Harper, who ditched HR for operations, thrilled to escape Apex's soulless grip. Trailblazer launched an employee stock plan, with Lila and Tina leading the rollout, their banter keeping the office electric. Ethan's people over pixels ethos made Trailblazer the talk of Austin's tech scene, its rooftop parties legendary. One evening, Sarah raised a glass at their ranch to building what lasts. Ava, their daughter, sent a mural sketch from Portland, depicting Ethan as a longhorn charging through a digital wasteland. Ethan grinned, his heart full. His story proved relationships trumped algorithms, like BBQ beats kale smoothies any day. But the real twist came months later, at Trailblazer's first quarterly review. Dana Ortiz called Ethan to the rooftop, her expression unreadable. "We've got a problem," she said, handing him a tablet. It was an ex-post from an anonymous account, Peak Pulse Purge 2, leaking internal Trailblazer emails. The messages, doctored to look like Ethan's, suggested he was inflating revenue again, this time to boost Trailblazer's stock before a planned IPO. The post was tagged by @NortheastHustler, Vince Russo, back for revenge. Ethan's blood ran cold, but then he laughed, a deep, defiant roar that echoed over the Austin skyline. "Vince thinks he's clever," he said, pulling out his phone, "but he forgot one thing. I've got Tina's hacking skills and Lila's ex-army. Let's bury this snake." Within hours, Tina traced the post to Vince's IP address, while Lila unleashed a meme storm, photoshopping Vince as a cartoon villain with the caption, "When your comeback flops harder than Mason's man bun." The internet erupted, Vince the Viper trending nationwide. Dana, grinning, revealed she'd already hired a forensic team who confirmed the emails were fakes. Vince's digital fingerprints all over them. The next day, Ethan met Big Tex at the food truck lot, sharing the news over ribs. "Vince is done," Ethan said. "He's facing a lawsuit for defamation, and Apex is cutting him loose to save face." Big Tex slapped the table, laughing. "That's what you get for messing with a longhorn? You played him like a fiddle, Ethan." As Ethan drove home, passing the old Peak Pulse office, now Trailblazers, its logo shining proud, he felt a surge of triumph. Vince's scheme had backfired, exposing his deceit and cementing Ethan's legend. The Austin skyline glowed, a testament to what he'd built. Not just a business, but a family, forged in trust and tougher than Texas leather. And somewhere, Mason and Vince were learning the hard way. You don't bet against Ethan Caldwell.